Hello and welcome back to the Trench Runners. I'm Lackbar with,
Hackbar.
and we are doing Jank or Bank Heavy Edition. So we're just going to be going through all of the heavies and all the different factions and ranking them and saying whether they're like jank and trash or if they're bank and amazing. Uh,
Yep. First one in the series. There will be more to come. This series is going to encompass, hopefully, Armada as well as not just units, but upgrades and not objectives, but command cards, stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, without further ado, unless we have anything else to say, let's get right into it. First up, as the worst heavy in the game, that title goes to the X-34 Land Speeder. Uh, you want to share your thoughts on this one, Lakbar?
yeah, so it's called a heavy, but it only has armor 2. Um, It's Arsenal 3, but its only native gun has 2 white dice. You have to pay for any other potential weapons. You have cover 1, which is nice.
Whoop-de-doo.
Light transport 1 open, which basically gives the unit inside heavy cover.
But it's one singular unit.
Yeah, it's
Like you can only get like Luke or because this is Rebels. You're only gonna really want to put like Luke in here, or maybe Chewie or I don't even know. I don't run Rebels, but
Han in it.
yeah, and that's about it. I mean, the best thing you could put in here is Luke, and it's not like Luke is slow in his own regard. He's not like a Yoda or a Vader or a Palp or anything.
I mean, the only scenario I'd run this in is you throw Han or Sabine in there, and then they just gunsling out of the transport, and that's really
I still wouldn't run this.
yeah.
I'd put them in there by themselves without this thing. I
Yeah,
mean, like armor 2, and then white saves, and only six wounds. Like I tested it out. It's going to cost you around 120 points to fit it with the guns that you see on the side there, um, to make it be able to use Arsenal 3. And it's not even like ATST or anything else's dice, any actual heavy dice, even with all those upgrades.
so
And
yeah,
then it's still
Land
garbage.
Speeder is jank.
Yes. Officially, the X-34 land speeder is jank. On to the next one, the AA5 speeder truck. Yes, we're including things that have not been completely revealed. Like, for example, I don't know the name of them, but the slot with like the person in them, we don't know those yet. That what's going to be for the AA5, but based off what we can already see, it's not looking too good for it.
Yeah, maybe if the medic thing is good, then sure, it's fine. But the thing itself is awful.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's personally, I think transports are just bad in general. Um,
Yeah,
that's just my opinion. But I mean, yeah, armor is helpful, but like I would never. It doesn't even have arsenal, so I'm not afraid of. I wouldn't want to shoot at this thing regardless, because what's the best its gun could do? Maybe they'll give it 4 blacks and that's about it, and then it's slow as all hell, and it's it's just bad. It
yeah,
has no firepower. It's 75 points to lug around with a unit of maybe you'll have something good inside of it, but this thing is not good.
and then to boot, when it blows up, the thing inside of it suffers a wound and is now out in the open with no transport.
Exactly.
So
So,
it's bad.
officially this one too is jank.
Yeah.
After this one, we have this one is also newly patrolled. This unit was a subject of heavy janking, as I'll call it, with me, Lackbar, and Dakbar. We were all like messing around, seeing if we can throw Palpatine or Vader out of out of this thing because it is multi-faction. And yeah, I think that's its most redeeming factors, the fact that it's multi-faction. And that's why they made it as it is.
Yeah, this the only time I'd ever run this, unless it has like an amazing gun upgrade and it's super punchy, um,
Mm,
which I probably don't really see happening,
no, not
is
really.
just to run Palp and throw him out of a helicopter on his one pip turn.
Yeah, that was For reference, that was one of the jank lists we made. It was Palpatine. I had Palpatine, Vader, and 2 of these, and then Lackbar made a 12 activation Palpatine LAAT list.
Yeah, and then once Palpatine and the LAT die, taking out your opponent's entire army, they're just gonna you're screwed.
It's not good, those lists. I think the most interesting thing about this is the hover air. I think that's kind of a cool mechanic. And the fact that it's immune to melee and range 1 weapons effectively puts it out of the range of any force user. But then again, force users are not the only thing in people's list. They also are accompanied by people with more than range 1 weapons. And once this thing sees things with more than range 1 weapons, it's in trouble.
Yeah, this thing will just crumble. It's
if it's focused, it will not live if it's focused down at all. And for that reason, I pronounce this jank.
Agreed.
Next one, we're getting to the stuff that's a little bit more competitively viable at this point, but I will still talk about it. The TX225 GAV-W Occupier Combat Assault Tank for the Imperials.
Yeah. I don't like this tank. I think it's okay. And it kind of does what it wants to. There's armor, arsenal 2, which you're probably going to add an extra gun onto it. Reposition, which is nice. Is transport 1 open, which is probably the part you're not really taking it for. Weak point 1 sides isn't great because there's super long side arcs. Speed 1, 8 health, which is nice. Red defense dice, also nice. 6 resiliency is not bad. And then it has a range 4 gun. So you can kind of use this in an Imperial army and not feel like you're wasting 155 points. You can kind of use it and make it work.
Kind of. Keyword kind of. I think weak point sides and transport really kind of negate each other in terms of their usefulness. Like, I would not want to be transporting things in this because it has weak point sides. And even though it does have red defense die, it still can be focused down because with transports, they're not exactly usually going to be near the rest of your army. And I think, yes, it's a tank, but the fact that it's range 1 to 4 gun, it's only 2 reds and 2 blacks, and then it has the gun slot, the circle, and that I guess you equip high energy shells to that, I guess, and then you can get 4 reds, 2 blacks, and a white, and that's still not as good as a Saber tank can do, or an ATST, even with that higher energy shells.
It is cheaper though.
It is cheaper, yeah, it is cheaper, but I don't know. I think there is a better option for Imperials. Yeah. So what do you think of this one, Lackbar? What do you pronounce it?
It's cool because it's from Rogue One.
Which automatically makes it cool, but not necessarily competitive.
Yeah, and I don't really want to call it jank, but it's definitely not amazing. So I'm kind of just iffy on this one, just because you're probably going to choose an ATST over if you want to spend this many points. Like, it's not like awful, so it's not completely jank. It's just kind of not
sort of jank. I think we need to make a new category. Jank is at the bottom, of course. Bank is at the top. And then what do you want to call the one in the middle?
I don't know. You made up jank or bank.
True. Well, we'll get back to you on that. But yeah, I agree. It's in between jank and bank, but I'd say it leans more jank. All right, on to the next one, which is the more competitively viable version of the assault tank. The ATST, which is, in our general opinion, there was a bit, once we got up to these number 4, 2, and 3, or number 4, 3, and 2, sorry, can't count. There was a lot of discussion between me and Lackbar and Dackbar, who unfortunately couldn't make it for this video and the Yoda video, which you'll see, hopefully, or maybe not, it'll upload before this, but we'll see. We were discussing what comes in these 4 places, and after discussion we said that the ATST is in 4th, and yeah, Immediately, you can see why I think it's better than the Grav Tank. Is this MS4 twin blaster cannon right here on the bottom right? Automatic range 1 to 4, 2 reds, 2 blacks, 2 whites. Better than anything the Grav Tank can do, even with high energy shells on that. And you can do that with Arsenal. So you just have that plus whatever you have in these 3 gun slots, which with the ATST, you have the mortar for super long range, which I think the mortar is super fun. And then you have the 2 in the middle. I forget exactly what they're called, but the one in the middle gives you an extra of each die. So 1 extra red, 1 extra black, 1 extra white. And then the smallest one, I forget exactly what it gives you, but I think it's like 3 blacks or something. Like, do you know what it is?
I really don't. You're
Yeah.
probably going to be taking I believe the range 3 option, which is
Well, you can take 3 of them. You can take all of them.
Well, yeah, but you're probably not going to want to.
True, for points. You're probably just going to take the range 3 one, and maybe if you have points left over, I would take the mortar too, just because it's super cool. In my opinion, I think 4 to Infinite is awesome, especially since it's suppressive. But weak point rear, again, this is better than weak point sides because it's easier to position your ATST so that it's not getting shot in the back, as opposed to getting shot in the sides, especially if your thing has transport like the Grav Tank, where you want the sides to be, well, you don't want the sides to be hit, but they might possibly, there's a much higher chance of them getting hit because it wants to be moving because it's a transport. That's not the case with the ATST, which is very much a stay in one place for the most part for a large part of the game. And then over here we have the health 11. However, it does not have red saves, which is something worth noting. So
yeah, so I actually wanted the ATST to be in 3rd place because I like the ATST. This thing rolls 9 dice at range 3 with its upgrade. That's always going to be good, especially when you have the Hammer's Pilot, which gives it surge to hit. That's a lot of dice and a lot of damage. I know it only has white defense dice, but it has 11 health and it still has armor. And I talk about the air speeder and the LAAT being fragile, but the ATST is stationary. The LAAT and air speeder kind of want to be buzzing around. But the ATST, you can have it sit there and have repair droids actually help it instead of trying to run infantry units around behind your air speeder that's making speed 3 compulsory moves and trying to catch it to repair it. That just doesn't work.
doesn't work, yeah.
So on this, you can actually repair it.
Yeah, that is something definitely worth noting. The fact that the ATSC is very much a bunker. I want to say bunker bot, but that's not the right word. I'll say bunker bot because why not? Made it up. Where it just stays in one spot for the most part and just shoots, and that can lead to some very good synergies with defensive builds, such as just throw a bunch of repair droids, which synergize with any heavy, but not nearly as much with ones that want to be running around like any of the transports in the land or the air speeder. And that 11 health, yes, it is white defense dice, but I agree with Lackbar that is more durable than you think. However, there are lots of things you can do, like Bosk. He can throw 5 crits into a unit with his Reptilian Rampage just in one turn. And same with the ISF with Iden. They can throw plenty of crits into a unit. So it is definitely possible that you can wipe an ATST because it has white defense dice.
Yeah.
Because even though it has health, it has 11 health, those white defense die can definitely feel really bad in big dice pools.
Yeah, and ATST's biggest problem is other tanks because 2 AATs will destroy it.
Yeah, and we'll talk about 2 AATs once we get to higher up on the list because, I mean, yes, the ATST and the AAT are the only two heavies that I would recommend taking 2 of in a list. Actually, take that back. T34 could be, but the ATST, T34, and the AATs all can be run 2 of in a list. However, the ATST, when you're running 2 of it, isn't as good as the other 2. when you're running 2 AATs or 2 air speeders.
Yeah. So your thoughts, is the ATST jank, or is it in the middle, or is it bank?
Ooh, I say the ATST is bank, but it is not as bank as the other three. And when I say that, I might call like the Saber tank or the T34, the AAT, hint, it's not the AAT, possibly jank in some cases, but I think in a vacuum, the ATST is bank.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I
Yeah.
think the ATST's bank. It's old, but it's still good.
Oldies but goodies. All right, next up, we have another oldie but goodie. I was calling it the T34. I apologize. The T47 air speeder. Now, this was a subject of not argument, but intense discussion between me and Lackbar over text about whether the T47 or the ATST should take third place or second place. But I actually moved it up as far as second, but I changed my mind and put it back down to third. So I like the airspeeder a lot because I like to play my games very aggressively. Not nearly as like Lackbar is a very much play defensive and then rush it the final few rounds to grab an objective kind of guy. But for me, this is my go-to airspeeder or my go-to speeder, of course, because the other speeder ain't too great. I really enjoy this because armor 7 health. Again, not nearly as durable as you want it to, but I think the I think its most redeeming quality is that speeder 2 move 3. This thing will and can get to your enemy lines before it gets blown up. It will. It's just a given. And then you can, with its gun slot, equip the ground buzzer to it, and that gives you 3 reds and 7 blacks. And that can and will wipe units, especially rebels, or in some cases droids if you get enough hits. But it is very scary, and it's very good at what it does, which is go in and cause mayhem. Yes, a T47 airspeeder is probably the most likely of any of the top 4 to die. That is true. And I would count on mine dying, but I would like it to kill some units in the process. And that is what it is good at, especially since it's good at immune to blast. That's nice. Immune to melee, so you can't jump in with a force user and melee it, which is one of the best ways a lot of factions have with dealing out large crit pools. Some factions can't do that, namely droids. Droids do not like throwing around crits. They're not good at that, especially with their core units, which they're just bodies. And their main for droids, their main way of dealing out damage is through heroes, as demonstrated by Lackbar playing droids. If you ever want to watch that, check out our bat reps. Small plug there. But the thing is, against droids, what can shoot this? What can shoot this? Unless people are running their rocket launcher, which is not that likely. All they have to shoot at it is E5Ss, whatever the one that has 3 blacks is called, E5 EC or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are not big crit pools at all. And this T47 could possibly, it will survive those, and it will get multiple hits off, and it is very scary. So yeah, those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm not so positive on the airspeeder. I thought the ATST should have taken a spot, and the airspeeder should have been lower on the list. My reason for that is, unlike the ATST, this thing is on its own, and if you can build around it and manage to get it to wipe some units, that's great. And you should keep doing that, because some people are just good at air speeders. Personally, I don't like them because you were saying droids don't have a lot of crits. Stab riders are excellent at forcing through crits with critical 2 on their guns and 6 blacks. You can also
true, but if their stab riders are back at their lines defending against the airspeeder, you've already succeeded.
maybe, but I mean, then you also have things like Darth Maul, who can saber throw, and you have Dooku, who is force lightning. there's still things that can hit it, and other factions other than droids definitely can deal with air speeders. And in the, it is a droid heavy meta, but we're seeing a lot of AATs, and air speeders do not like AATs at all.
True. Yeah, I agree with you on that point. Again, though, we were talking about in a vacuum in terms of just this ranking. And I think in a vacuum, I would take a T47 over an ATST just because I think, this personally fits my play style. And I was the one who made the PowerPoint, so I was the one who got to put it in third. But it also, I love the idea of it, it's of just causing mayhem and then dying. That's all I need in life, mayhem and death. But if you want to run like a mega aggressive list, which is actually a thing. This is a list now. You run double air speeder and Luke, and you run in and you kill, and that's your list. And that is scary. As a clone player myself, I would be peeing my pants when I saw this because there's not much I can do with double air speeder and a force user coming at me.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So we know your thoughts. You definitely think the air speeder's bank.
Absolutely.
And right now, I know it's got surge to crit and everything. It's just okay to me. I don't love the air speeder. I never have, and I probably never will. It's just not really my thing.
Not your forte.
Yeah, so I'm just saying this one's just okay.
All right. Well, that's our thoughts on it. You can tell us what you think about the air speeder in the comments below. But up next, we have coming in the number 2 slot. This tank is also featured in a bad rep, so check that one out as well. But here it is, the TX130 Saber class fighter tank. I, as a clone player, I feel, I think since Lackbar has played against this tank a lot, we played a lot of games with this off channel. He's learned to fear it, but I feel like you should talk about it first. But before we mention lists with the TX130 Saber class fighter tank that I use are the only time I've won a game in Legion. I've only won games using the tank. Correct. So that's just a note you should say when talking about when I talk about the tank. So anyways, Lackbar, let's hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not looking at any other units, the tank is great. Because this thing loves to fight infantry. If you're fighting infantry, you've succeeded because they probably don't have high velocity, so all your dodge tokens are going to be canceling crits, and they're going to be throwing out a lot of dice in return. And I mean, this thing's got critical, it's got impact, which, isn't great against core. I guess if you're fighting B2s, it's nice. But
yeah,
otherwise, the critical is nice. You get like the beam cannon, high energy shells. You're throwing suppression out there. You're giving all these big dice pools. It's great, and it's clones. You can have pilots to share tokens. You can build up aims or dodges, whatever you want. So all of that's great. Hover ground is great. You can strafe standby or, all of that stuff. Arsenal 2, armor's great. 9 health is great, especially with red defense dice. You don't surge at all, but you've got critical to make up for it, and you've got dodge tokens. And 6 resiliency could be better, but that's what that is. Weak point 1 rear sides. Could do without the rear or without the sides, but it's not the worst. You still got dodge tokens.
Yep.
And that's really all you have to try to do with the Saber tank is just dodge everything and shoot back. When the Saber tank starts to get a little outclassed is particularly lists that have impact are good against it, as they're good against all heavies, and lists that have impact, critical, and high velocity, such as ATs, will tear your Saber tank apart because you can't your dodges, and that's going to be a lot of crits coming through.
Exactly. The Saber tank, my thoughts are if you're playing a list with no tank, this thing can kill. that's a Force and Fire reference, but never mind. It is its best feature, outmaneuver. The super synergizes with Padme. Super synergizes. You'll notice in the whatever it's called, the bat rep that we filmed, that I use Padme and Tank and R2 and D2 or R2 D2, and it works. They do, if they are just running infantry, they do not. They should ignore the tank, because there is no way they're going to get any meaningful damage unless they have a way to somehow force like 15 hits in 2 turns, and that's it. That's 15 crits. My bad, and that's virtually impossible, because you can repair 4 with R2. You can dodge as many as you want with Padme, especially if you're building up dodges through other means. With vigilance, you always will have 2 dodges, and then she just quick thinking and dodges, and then you have 4 dodges to spend. So that's 4 crits, which 99% of dice pools will never have more than 4 crits. Well, I'll say 80%, because there's ways of forcing 5 crits through, like boss, like I mentioned earlier. But it's very scary. And the thing is, though, it only has 9 health, and it does not surge. So, and its main way of defense is the dodges that it will be getting from Padme, because I would only really run this thing with Padme to back it up. Even with the veteran clone pilot that lets it share tokens with nearby clones, that's a little. It's 7 points, which I guess is okay, but it's a little pricey for clones, especially with how many points this thing takes up. And it's not that good, because you exhaust it, you only get to use it for one round or one activation. It's whatever. But without dodges to back it up, with which things that are using high energy shells like AATs or anything that has high velocity, it will melt. This thing is not good versus other tanks, especially AATs that just exhaust high energy shells and murder it.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything there.
Yeah. So I'm going to say for the Jank or Bank on this one, as much as I love the fighter tank, I'm going to say it is very in the middle, because if you're running this thing, one more thing I should mention before I rank it. I know we're talking about this in a vacuum, but one thing to note is that the Saber tank is the Republic tank. And what that means for it is that it is very point consuming for Republic. Like, it's very hard to make room for other stuff when you're using up a fourth of your list on this tank. It's, again, most you're getting is usually going to be 8 activations, which is a common thing for clone lists or Republic lists that have anything other than just Rex and the clone commander as their leaders. If you have any focus piece, like a force user or this tank, you're normally going to get 8 activations, and that's the downside of the tank. It's just expensive, and anything expensive in Republic is really hard to make work, like we talked about with Yoda in the video. But that was, again, we're talking about it in a vacuum, and in a vacuum, it melts to other tanks. So I'm going to say it can be Jank, it can be Super Bank versus infantry. So I'm going to put it right at the middle, leaning towards Bank.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's Bank against infantry, and it's not really a janky unit. Like, it's not like weird and
No,
that, but against AATs, it's just bad. It's not jank. It's just bad against AAT.
yeah, it's not Jank. It's just not good.
Yeah.
So next up, one sec. I'll transition to the next one, but then I have to go for about 5 seconds. So I'll let you talk about our first and number 1 best heavy in the game, the AAT.
Yeah, so we've been talking about this a lot, saying how it's good against all the other heavies. That's because it is. AAT is great. As a droid player, I love AATs, even though I don't even own them, just because they're good. So they have AI attack, which is fine, because all tanks AATs want to do is shoot twice, because they have barrage, which I'll get to later. So they have armor, cancel all hits. They have arsenal 2, so I can use 2 weapons if you want. What you're probably going to want to do is to use barrage, which is next. If you do not use arsenal, you can perform 2 attack actions. That means you're going to be throwing 8 red dice with critical 2, high velocity, and impact 1. And you can do that. You can throw 8 red dice, and that's just great. Hover ground is good. Weak point 2 rear is fine because you're probably not going to get shot there.
Yeah. The weak point 2 rear, as we were talking about the ATST, again, it's not that much of a factor because this is I've created a new term, haha, bunker bot. It's going to stay in a corner or a little area, point its back to the back of the board, and just shoot things with its gun. That's what this thing does. It's not going to be moving like a grav tank or a land speeder or any speeder or anything that, I don't know, is fast. But it's like the Saber tank in that matter, except it has weak point 2 rear over weak point 1 sides and rear. And I'll take weak point 2 rear any day of the week over weak point 1 sides and rear because you are much more likely to get hit in the side than you are to get hit in the rear. And I'll take my chances with that.
Yeah. So the AAT, another thing it's great at, if you're playing key positions, this thing has a big base. It's only speed 1, but the size of the base, this thing can move. And so it can literally just sit there right at the key position with your other 9 or 10 activations of B1 battle droids and other stuff like that. Just sitting there to wait on the last round, while this tank is literally just sitting in the middle saying, come and rush the key position, please, because I will delete 2 of your units that try to rush.
Yeah.
And you just charge with your B1s that probably are untouched because you just hide them behind the AAT until the last round because you're usually going to out activate stuff because the AAT is going to delete activations. And so you just sit there and say, come on, come try to rush the middle. Come try to push off my 10 activations of 7 model B1 units and Darth Maul and Dooku and Grievous and whatever else you want to run. And in the meantime, I'll just destroy you with an AAT Trade Federation battle tank. It's good at so many things, and droids are just so good at including expensive units because their core units are 36 points, and you can always have activation control, and that is such a huge part of Separatist list and what makes the AAT, on top of its amazing statistics, the best tank in all of Star Wars Legion.
Yep, I wholeheartedly agree with everything Lackbar just said there. It's just so good at everything it does. There's nothing it can't do. And what you were talking about with the KP and how big its base is, yes, you might say, oh, it and the Saber tank have the exact same base model. But yeah, and yeah, you could also, lock down that KP to an extent with the Saber tank. But the Saber tank wants to be as close as possible to the rest of your army, i.e. for Padme or getting repaired by R2. And normally there's a little bit of a dead zone between line of sight blockers and then the KP in the middle or other line of sight blockers. So you're rarely going to have a place where Padme and R2 can hide, plus while also being in range of being able to repair or help out the Saber tank, unless they're already on the KP, but that's besides the point. And it also is not ever going to go into a list with more than 8 activations. So it's just not good at KP. There's not many things that it is good at per se that it's especially good at. I think both of these, because of their model is so big, or because their base is so big, they're both amazing at intercept the transmissions. But that's another thing that droids are very good at is intercept, because they just rush turn 6 and then they get double points. Because all you have to do is turn 1, you just have turn 1 or turn 2 and 4, you just have to hold your objective, right? And if you do that, and then on turn, because that gives you 2 points, and then it gives them
4.
Yeah, it gives them 4. Sorry. And then on this last round, you grab 2 of them. You grab the center with your massive 6 B1s and plus the AAT. You just rush the center. That gives you, that'll give you 5. No, that will give you 6. Yeah, you'd have 6, and they would also have 6. So droids are amazing at rushing intercept at the last turn. So there's nothing it can't do, or the Saber tank can do, that the AAT can't do, but better.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're in agreement that the AAT is most definitely bank, the most money and of all Legion heavies. However, there is one thing I would like to mention about the Saber tank. There is something fun you can do with air support. And the beam cannon. Air support lets you at the end of your activation get 1 red and 2 blacks with beam 2. The beam cannon gives you 2 reds with beam 2. If you play this red with the Saber tank, you can effectively, against 3 different units, well, 2 other units plus the thing you're hitting with your main gun plus the beam cannon, but you can give them all 3 reds and 2 blacks, right? But that's 2 suppression because you're attacking them twice because of Arsenal. And you're handing out tons of suppression with the beam cannon, right? I'm pretty sure it's suppressive. I could be wrong. It's not. No, yeah, you're right. It's not suppressive, but it's still 3 reds and 2 blacks on basically an entire line of troops is not something to be scoffed at all whatsoever. But again, that's a only happens ever so often kind of scenario, and you have to be kind of aggressive if you want it to work, because after round 1 or 2, your enemy is not going to be bunched up while not being behind line of sight blockers as they will in those first 2 rounds. So you have to play pretty aggressively with your Saber tank in order to get that. And play aggressive is not exactly in the Saber tank's playbook.
Yeah.
So anyways, any final thoughts for this, Lackbar?
I think that's about it, really. No, I don't got anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I have to say. Sorry I rambled a bit about the whatever it's called, the Saber tank, but I do love my Saber tank. So we'll go over the list one more time. Last place, X34 Land Speeder. Bad in every way, shape, or form. It's not good at anything it does, except for transport light people while also being behind line of sight cover 99.9% of the time. That's about it. Next up, AA5 Speeder truck. Also bad because it's slow, doesn't have good or doesn't have weapons that are meaningful, have a meaningful impact on the game, and is just not as strong as people think, or as anyone thinks, because no one thinks anything about it because it's new. But LAT not good because it goes down very quickly, and then after that, the combat assault tank, we thought it was in the middle because it's not good at attacking. It's not really great at anything. It's not good at doing things, or it's not great at doing things from long range, and it's not good at doing transport things because it only has speed 1, and it's also open transport, which is not ideal at all.
Yeah,
and also has weak point size.
The Gav tank is a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, exactly. The next one, ATST, very good at being a bunker bot. I love that I've created a new little term here. And just staying in one position, being backed up by med droids or repair droids, and just dealing long range damage and staying in one point. And then the T47 Airspeeder, these two were subject to a lot of discussion by us on which one should take that 3rd place. The T47 Airspeeder, I believe that it's very good at doing what it wants to do, which is get in and cause mayhem. I already said those exact words, but those exact words describe accurately what it does. However, Lackbar thought that it was a little too easy to kill for his liking. And then finally, second to last, we have the Saber tank. Good against infantry, but not good against other tanks, especially AATs, or even in other Saber tanks, because other Saber tanks will be most likely taking high energy shells, so they'll be able to cancel out your outmaneuver, which is an interesting thought, but it's not good versus other tanks. And then finally, best tank or heavy in all of Legion, the AAT Trade Federation battle tank. Seems like a common theme that the best of certain things are all going to be the Confederate ones, but it is what it is. So yeah, that's it. Anything else?
I think that's all.
That's all. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Trench Runners YouTube channel. This was episode 1 of Jank or Bank. This was a heavy edition. There will be more. Anybody sees this, just let us know if you want to see anything in particular next in the comments. And we'll see you next time. This is Hackbar,
And this is Lackbar.
and we'll see you next time. Bye.